I'm Sam Sham of the Argonne National Laboratory. I'm the program lead for advanced reactor materials at Argonne. It is my pleasure today to speaking to you all about the work that we have started in fiscal 20 at Argonne on developing the technical basis of surrogate material surveillance in advanced reactors. First, I would like to acknowledge the support from the U.S. Department of Energy. And I would also like to acknowledge my colleagues engaging in this work. So data on materials degradations for advanced reactors during operations are very limited. Like LWRs, the use of a surrogate material surveillance would allow us to collect this data, and it would be an important pathway in supporting the timely licensing of advanced reactors. The thinking on material surveillance for advanced reactors have been pretty much driven by the LWR technologies. For example, we have an ASTM standard practice that is a E531 that was established in 1975, and it provides guidance on material surveillance testing for high-temperature reactors. It is based on the idea of putting surrogate materials in the reactor to receive irradiation dose and temperature histories, and then periodically pull them out to perform characterization and mechanical property testing. The surrogate materials are not actively loaded in the reactor in terms of stressing. Since this ASTM E531 is a practice on surveillance testing, there's no acceptance criteria at this time that can be used for consideration of continued operations based on the gathered data. ASTM is currently updating E531 to better suit the new advanced reactors that are being developed. The sources of materials degradations in advanced reactors include irradiation, coolant interactions, high temperature, and stresses. The effects of these sources of degradations are synergistic. Therefore, it would be advantageous to have a surveillance test article that can capture all of these effects to complement the current test specimen selections in ASTM E531. When we started this project, we had looked at a number of specimen designs that would bring loading or stress into the picture. So I have 3 cartoons on the right. What we were looking for was, number one, the load has to be applied to the specimens passively. Number 2, the specimens can be fabricated. Number 3, the size of the specimen should be small enough that it can be used in an operating reactor. And number 4, as a wish, something that we might be able to do some measurements after it has been pulled out of the reactor and then be reinserted into the reactor for further surveillance. The picture in the middle shows the general test specimens, a design that we have selected that satisfy many of the wants. The key is to use a thermal expansion coefficient mismatch to drive the mechanical loading passively. The specimen design incorporates the so-called elastic follow-up that models key structural response, and that has been under development within the ARCH program to support other testing needs. Specimen designs. Say we have 2 different materials as shown in different colors on the left, so the green and the purple. As the temperature increases and both materials are allowed to freely expand, there will be no stresses generated in the materials. But if the materials are constrained to elongate by the same amount, stresses are generated. So this is the basic mechanism that we use to drive the test specimen mechanically. The picture shows that the material in the green has a lower CTE than the purple material, and that puts the green in tension and the purple in compression when the elongations are constrained. So we look at the green as the surrogate materials to be sort of put into the reactor. So we really want this green material to be loaded in tension. So therefore, that having a CTE for the green material to be smaller than the purple, the driver materials in this setup is very important. But however, we have a problem in testing or designing specimens for stainless steels because the CTEs are much larger than all the available materials. So we cannot find a purple material that can be used as the driver in the design, the basic design on the left. So we modified the design for testing stainless steel as shown in the group of cartoons on the right. Now the test piece in the middle is formed by two different materials where the purple material has a lower CTE than the green. In this way, we can generate tensile loading on the stainless steel in the two material bar. So at the start of the program, we wanted to show that this idea will work. So we quickly developed this proof of concept testing by putting together a specimen using the materials that we had available. We used a 316 stainless steel as the surrogate material and alloy 617 to be used as the material to alter the effective CTE of the inner bar. We first used a friction stir welding to weld the alloy 617 and 316 together. Then the composite bar was machined into the inner bar with the right geometric dimensions. We then fabricate the outer casing using stainless steel and made some cutouts so that we could attach strain gauges onto the inner bar later when the whole specimen has been assembled. And then we used a E-beam to weld the two ends of the casing and the inner bar to form the integral test specimen. We then put the specimen into a box furnace and subjected it to thermal cycling. The plot shows the strain measurements that we collected. It shows that we can get adequate strain ranges during thermal cycling. And we just stop the test at, I think, a fixed number of cycles. And one good thing that we were quite happy was that the E-beam welds didn't fail. So how did we go from the proof of concept testing? Well, first off, we wanted to be sure that this concept can provide the strain ranges, the stress level during a hot standby operation in the reactor, and the representative elastic follow-up factor in a reactor component. We tried it out using simulations to make sure that we have adequate design window. So we used this so-called 4-bar model in the figure insets to the right. And then we run many different combinations of the geometric parameters by doing the one-dimensional calculations, putting the right sort of the elastic, plastic, creep properties into those bars. And then we came up for each geometric parameter combination. We calculated the strain range and we calculated the elastic follow-up, and then we keep on doing the calculation. I think that plot represented about 10,000 different combinations. And so for each, we showed what is the follow-up factor and the strain range that we can get. So putting all those data on the plot, it show that we do have an adequate working designed windows. Then we need to impose some constraints in the overall geometry of the specimen. So for each to work inside a reactor, we want the specimen to be small. But in demonstrating that the specimens will actually work, we need to have a bigger specimen so that we can put instrumentations, for example, strain gauges, in order to collect data. So we ended up with two designs, one big specimen and one small specimen. The large one has a length of 12 inches with a overall diameter of 2 inches. that will allow us to instrument the specimens, and we can then test the specimen to failure. For the small one, we limited the length to about 3 inches and the overall diameter to be 1 inch. We can't put strain gauges on the inner bar, but the purpose of the small specimen is to find out if we have any limitation in fabrication so that we can de-risk our development. We want to find out that whether it's a showstopper in terms of fabrication. For the large specimen, we impose the overall geometric constraint of 12-inch length and 2-inch in diameter. And then we chose a thermal cycle history as shown in the picture. Rough out a failure time of about 10,000 hours. This is the reasonable time that we can actually test. And then we use the numerical model to come up with the geometric design. So the plot on the left shows the hysteresis loops that we obtained from simulation. It shows that the geometric design will be adequate for what we wanted to test. For the small specimen, we chose a thermal cycle history as shown in the inset. It has a cycle period of 10,000 hours that is representative of some reactor operations. And we sized the specimen to fail in about 50,000 hours or like 5 cycles. So that will be sort of a good enough type of parameters for a surveillance test articles to be used in a reactor. So based on those constraints, we work out the geometries of each part. We now have a specimen design, the small one, that the geometries will deliver the type of strain ranges and under a thermal cycle of the type that I described. And so we really wanted to see whether we have fabrication issues for this representative case. So from the plot of the hysteresis plot, I noticed that the strain range for this small specimen is rather small. So that's something that we need to look at more closely. So to find out if we can have larger strain ranges for the small specimen design, we look at the CTEs of different materials. So CTE mismatch is really the key to make this specimen design work. So this chart is very busy, and I am not going to look into all the details. I just want to highlight a couple of aspects. First, the group of materials in purple are the Class A materials that have been qualified for ASME Division 5 applications. The other materials that are put together include nickel alloys, chrome moly steels, other stainless steels, iron chrome aluminum alloys, and refractory alloys. And then I group the CTEs by color into 3 groups. Dark pinks have CTEs from 16 to 18 times 10 to the power minus 6 per degree Celsius. So it's very large for stainless steel. The blues, the CTEs are between 11 to 15 times 10 to the power minus 6. And then the greens, the refractories, are 10 and below. So it shows that to find out, to have a more separation between the CTEs for material groups, there is a workable design space. There are possibilities to select lower CTE materials for the specimen design when we test stainless steel. So with that, we did more simulations to explore this concept. So the figure on the left was based on using stainless steel and alloy 617 and perform this bar calculations. And then we plot out the fallout factor and the strain range. The figure on the right corresponds to replacing alloy 617 by moly. And we basically do the simulation using different properties, but with the same sort of thermal cycle conditions. And then the results show that the strain range as well as the elastic fallout factor are significantly improved or enlarged. So we can, within the design envelope, we can sort of find design points that can allow us to have a larger string range. That will be quite helpful because there's sometimes that we might want to size a surveillance test article that is not sized to the lifetime of the reactor components, but we want to size it so that it would fail earlier. So we sort of can have a specimens to sort of serve as a canary in terms of this type of approach. So in summary, in FY20 for this new project, we completed the initial conceptual development. We successfully demonstrated that the concept of using CTE mismatch to provide a crypt fatigue loading is feasible. We have developed designs for a large and a small specimen using 316 and alloy 617. We have found that we can increase the strain ranges in the small specimen by replacing alloy 617 with moly. Using 316 and alloy 617 for the large and the small specimens, they are being fabricated. We got slowed down a little bit by COVID-19, but the fabrication is ongoing. We expect to start the thermal cycling test on the large specimen in early 2021. So I hope that I can report the results to you in next year. So thank you. This is all I have.
It's about your the custom CTE measurement rig that you designed. Do you see any challenges as far as measuring? You talked about metals. Do you think with a modification you could measure, say, ceramics or graphite with a similar rig?
Similar conceptual design. I think that with graphite and ceramics, the key is whether or not that we can fabricate it. For metal, it involves sort of welding. So for graphite and ceramics, maybe that we can come up with, instead of using welding to put the system together, we might sort of using some slots or things like that. But that the basic concept is that you have to have CTE mismatch in the right way in order, because after all, you really want to test those materials, the surrogate materials to be put in tension in a reactor in order to collect the useful data. There's a possibility, but I don't know. So we're really struggling with fabrication. We really want to make sure that things can be fabricated. So thus far, that for the 617 and 316, they were okay. So we'll see.
Well, thanks very much, Sam. We appreciate it.